Last week, we had the pleasure of listening to Rosamunde, the full music for the play that did not remain with us. And today we're going to talk about the Schubert String Quartet in A, the Rosamunde. It's the Deutsch 804. And we're going to listen to a very, very special, well, for me, a very lovely, special, precise rendition of the piece by Il Quartetto Italiano, who really did a fantastic job with almost everything they touched. They're not with us anymore. I mean, the second violinist is still alive, but the quartet in itself stopped being about 20 years ago, but they were really, really special. So, well, we're going to start again with our friend Schubert. Franz Schubert, who had such a short life, was always busy trying to reinvent himself, trying to be more of the Schubert he felt that he wanted to be. And now we are in 1821, and let's not forget, it's only 7 years before Schubert died. He is, in 1821, he is 24 years old, and in August, he attempts another big work. He always wanted to do the big work. And although for many, many years, people used to say that Schubert is mainly the leader, mainly the chamber music, Schubert was a genius in orchestration. But he was a very precise, and he asked himself to be perfect, which is not a good thing to do always. And of course, he lived under the huge shadow of Ludwig van Beethoven, who also was in Vienna at that time. So in August 1821, he attempted the Symphony Number 7 in E major, which then became the Deutsch 729. But he only wrote 110 bars, which is not even half of the symphony. The rest was left marked down on a single line. I mean, he just did one line with an idea of how to continue. And he had some details and annotations as to how to add the missing pieces, how to complete them later. Of course, that later never happened, and this was left like this. In recent years, this and the other famous unfinished symphony, the one we all know and love, the number 8, the one that my little daughter, when she was little, she couldn't pronounce in Italian l'incompiuto. She was 3 or 2, I don't know. So she said, sì, è la ta 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 ta, è quella, no? So it's the unfinished number 8. Schubert now returns to live with his friend Schubert, a friend with whom he had a very difficult relationship. It wasn't exactly a love-hate, but as Schubert was a writer, a poet, a writer, a playwright, he always expected Schubert to admire his writing. Schubert had a very fine ear for poetry, and he did very little of what Schubert did. And when he did do something together, they tried several operas. It was a disaster. But in that period, he gets to know a man called Moritz von Schwind, who would become a long-time, really close friend. He would later say, Schwind, mein Liebchen, Schwind, my love. There's no homosexual relationship between them, but they were very, very close. And he also learns to know, and they will frequent a lot, Eduard Bauernfeld, who was a playwright and also quite a gifted painter. Schubert persisted with his attempt to mount a successful opera, which he would never succeed in doing. And a year later, in 1822, he completes the Alfonso and Estrella, which we still have today. It's the Deutsch 732. The libretto here is by his friend Schubert, and Vogel, who was the critic, also a friend, but he was the feared musical critic of the time. He said it was terrible, and he did not help them in any way. There are three other events that make this year so important to Schubert. First of all, in April, he would meet the god. He would meet Ludwig van Beethoven. This meeting was achieved through a friend. He asked a friend to present to the master, to the big master, a variation he wrote to a French aria. It will be called the Opus 10. And of course, there was a full dedication to Beethoven. We don't know what happened in the meeting. There's no, I was looking for reliable rumors. There's nothing serious. But there is reason to believe that Beethoven did enjoy the variation because he kept the music in his possession. After his death, that music was found next to his bed. So he probably, maybe he forgot it there, I don't know, but he probably liked it. He probably liked it very much. The second event was the writing, or shall we say, the abandonment of the famous Eighth Symphony, the unfinished, Linkcomputer. Although by now Schubert had a number of unfinished symphonies to his name, many, many reasons why he would not finish this symphony, because after that he wrote the 9th and the 10th. It's not as if, Cornelia, are you still with us? Okay, I thought that you left us for a minute. A friend of his took the manuscript and kept it with him, and he would then, in 1865, almost 40 years later, no, more than 40 years later, he would publish it, and it was then performed in the Vienna Gesellschaft der Musikfreunde, the Viennese Society for Music Lovers. And there were concerts in 1866 with very good criticism. Are you okay? Okay. And this was really a big statement. It's like Schubert pushed the big doors, opened them up, and said, here I am. I have my original approach to symphonical form. Because this symphony opens up the way for a new way of writing symphonies. And it will not be until another huge Viennese writer, Gustav Mahler, who would introduce into the symphony new forms, that people would go away from, I mean, composers would go away from what Schubert did with the incompiuta, with the unfinished. The third event of this year, of 1822, was a tragic one because Schubert, in a normal checkup that his father asked him to take with a doctor, discovered that he had contracted syphilis. This discovery and the illness which accompanied him, basically, this was the initial onset, and it forced Schubert. It didn't force Schubert, but everybody thought by that time that there was a very kind of a dispute between Schubert's father, who was a schoolmaster, a very moral man with very strong moral ideas, but a big music lover. And he asked a mutual friend to arrange for a meeting in a cafe, and they met, and he offered Franz to come back home, and Franz did, and he came back home. And he would stay there until the late spring of 1823, because he was just too ill to leave the house. And he would collapse again and again and again. And let's not forget that in 1823, Schubert was only 25 years old. And he was very close to suicide. He spent a certain period of time in Vienna at the General Hospital. And this seemed at the time to be helpful. But let's not forget that during all this time, he was composing all the time, more and more and more. He completed the piano sonata in A minor, the Deutsch 784, another one-act opera, Die Verschworenen, the juror or the members of the jury, a very, very beautiful libretto this time, and quite successful, although in his lifetime it was never performed. During the summer, he left the hospital and traveled to Linz and to Steyr. And he again tried his hand writing another opera. It's as if he was trying to write things where he never succeeded. He never succeeded in writing a lyrical work that had any kind of recognition. Although, let's not forget, am I recording this or not? Let me see. Excuse me just a second. Yeah, I am. Okay. He never really succeeded in a lyrical, complete work, although he was such a genius and a pathfinder in the lyrical poems, in the Lied. So anyhow, he tries his hand again with the Fiera Brass. Fiera Brass is a French name. It's for the Saracen Knight, for the Arab Knights. This will be the Deutsch 796. And he set, this one set again to a very, very poor libretto. And again, something that not Schubert himself wrote, but a friend of Schubert wrote. And it was a disaster. It was very badly written. And Schubert finds the Schöne Müllerin, and he starts writing the first, the music to the first Lied. His health remains precarious throughout the year, and in the winter, there's an incredible improvement in his health. And he is so full of energy, which it seems he never lacked in energy, although he was very desperate and ill. he always wrote, but all of a sudden, as his health improved, he finished the Schöne Müllerin. He wrote 6 or 7, I can't remember exactly, Lieder within a week. And we had the opportunity to listen to Thomas Quasthoff sing the Lieder here, the Schöne Müllerin. And what a delight, what a delight. And we have a feeling that he believes that he beat the illness, although we'll find out later in 1823, where the year is closed with another disaster, another debacle, another failure. This time, the play Rosamunde, written by the lovely Helmina von Scesi. As I told you, I think, last week, it only had 2 performances, closed for Christmas and never opened up again. And although Madame von Scesi would try again and again and again to find somewhere to perform it, but it never had another performance. The orchestral music that Schubert mustered for the play proved to be some of his most popular, and it's played in parts again and again and again, but only very few conductors would take upon themselves to play the whole piece. We listened here to a beautiful performance by von Otter as a mezzo-sopran and Claudio Abbado conducting. And now we come to the year that is a very, very particular year in the life of Schubert, 1824. 1824, there's a change, a mutation in the structure of the friends who would come to the Schubertiade. But it's also in the beginning of the spring of 1824 is probably one of the most prolific periods in the life of such a prolific writer. First of all, he would write the masterpiece, the quartet, Der Tod und das Mädchen, Death and the Maiden, where he used some variations on a lead that he wrote almost 7 years ago, 7 years earlier. After that, he tried his hand in an octet, which was a combination of brass strings, a very special combination, and what a magnificent success it was. The octet, in F, the Deutsch 803, which followed almost immediately, only 3 weeks later after the finish of the Tod und das Mädchen. Both of them not performing in his lifetime. Not performed, sorry. And then another good event happens. He succeeds in having the first part of the Schöne Müllerin, the first 12 Lieder published. And this makes this spring so special for him because it's the first time that he has recognition of the larger public, not through listening to it, but in those times, it was not very easy to go to a concert because you had to have a lot of money and you have to have the possibility to get a ticket. So a lot of people knew how to read music, and they read the manuscript, and this was very, very successful and sold quite a few copies. But let's hear what Schubert wrote in that spring of 1824, he wrote, "Think of a man whose health can never be restored, and who from sheer despair makes matter worse instead of better. Think of a man to whom love and friendship are but a torture. Every night when I go to sleep, I hope to never wake up again." Again, in 1824, as it did in 1817 and 1819 and 1821, he spent much of 1824 with the Esterhazy in Jelitz, and the slow pace, the rural slow pace there seemed to have been very, very beneficial to his health, although he chaffed at having to teach again, because Esterhazy wanted him to teach everybody who was part of the court. Now, Esterhazy, a family that still exists, by the way, the Esterhazy are still a family with a lot of sponsorship of the arts and quite a lot of money. And then the following year, in 1825, which brings us so close to the curtain falling on the life of Schubert, in 1825, it's a notable year for the steady increase in the number of the songs that are published and the resultant spread of his reputation beyond Vienna. You can find his Lieder now in Paris, you can find his Lieder now in London, you can find his Lieder now as far as Frankfurt, Leipzig, and Berlin. A summer holiday with our famous friend Vogel in the country gives him the happiness and peace of mind which had been so conspicuously absent the previous spring. And now he begins work on something that until today is called the Great Symphony number 9 in C major, the first to be completed in more than 6 years. In 6 years, he did not complete any symphony. He tried, he started, he did not complete. He returns to Vienna in September, and he initiates a 12-month period of great conviviality, a lot of friends, a lot of meetings, a lot of Schubertiades, and even before Sophia was there, people would come to homes of friends and listen to music there. And Schwind and Schubert remained particularly close during this time, sharing lodging. They lived together, food, clothes, and money. Schwind always having a little bit more than Schubert, but they were great friends. And Schubert called him, in kind of a humoristic way, meine Geliebte. Meine Geliebte is more feminine than masculine. But again, there were no homosexual, at least. They both were known to be ardent follower of the feminine sex. A couple of words about the Rosamunde Quartet. Schubert composed a total of 15 string quartets during a very, very brief career. The second movement of the string quartet number 13 in A minor, Deutsch 804, nicknamed the Rosamunde Quartet. Rosamunde means the pink or rose mouth. And this quotes a melody from Schubert's own incidental music to a play, which we're talking about, Rosamunde, the Princess of Cyprus. According to Brian Newbold, the self-quotation in this and other works composed the same year, same as famous big year, 1824, represented a definition of his musical personality. It's as if Schubert, all of 26 years of age, becomes a mature composer who is completely self-insured by his genius and by his power. A man who had only one piece of music performed in public, and that one piece of music performed in public was a complete disaster, and I'm talking about the Rosamunde play. But still, we find that Schubert has the beginning of the marking of something that we can definitely call Schubert's. The Rosamunde Quartet contains the typical four movements and features the standard instrumentalization of two violins, viola, and cello. And we will now talk shortly about Il Quartetto Italiano. Il Quartetto Italiano, to you, it's completely clear that in English it's the Italian Quartet. They started their career in 1945, and they called themselves Il Nuovo Quartetto Italiano. And I have no idea why, because there was no Quartetto Italiano as far as I know before them, but they started it as Il Nuovo. They started off in one of those magnificent places you can find along the La Costa Amalfitana in Italy, in Capri, on the island of Capri, at the village or town or city, not city, the town of Anacapri. All four players were still in their early 20s. And it was not before 1951, 6 years later, that they finally decided to drop the tag Nuovo. They're particularly noted for their recordings of the complete cycle of all the Beethoven string quartets made between 67 and 75, before they were disbanded 30 years ago in 1980. They only did the later of the Schubert quartets. They did the 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. But like everything else they did, to such a perfection where you can really listen to musica netto, a music that is not imposing its feelings, its atmosphere. It gives you music and allows you to use it so that it does to you what it wants to do. They are not trying to influence you in any way. They just give you music. The Historian Quartet had a secretary called Guido Alberto Borciani. He was the brother of the founder of Paolo Borciani, and also the founder of the Premio Paolo Borciani. Borciani, Pegreffi, and Rossi met in 1940 at the Consorcio Nazionale in La Spezia, all down in Tuscany. And in the summer of 1942, they met again at the Accademia Musicali Chigiana in Siena, again, beautiful Tuscany. And the cellist Arturo Bonucci, head of the chamber class and husband of Pina Camirelli, put them together with a viola player, Dionello Forzanti, for the study season, for the study session. So they were not yet a quartetto. They were just working to help others. They worked together on the Debussy quartet and performed it in September 1942. I happen to have a recording of that, and I will upload it to Eusofia so that we can listen to it there. And in August 1945, the group began to study together again at the Borciani house in Reggio Emilia, this time outside of Tuscany, but probably they moved there for the fantastic tortellini of Reggio Emilia. This is what I think, but maybe I'm wrong. And their debut followed on November 12th of 1945, the Sala dei Mori in Capri, at Anacapri, as the Nuovo Quartetto Italiano. In the inaugural concert at the Società degli Amici della Musica, they started their career and declared, "We are now a quartetto." By the end of that year, they had also performed in Reggio Emilia and in Milan. In March 1946, they were the winners of the concorso at the Accademia Nazionale di Santa Cecilia in Naples, and also in the concorso of the Accademia Filarmonica Romana. Performance for the Milan Quartet Society followed, and the first foreign engagement was at the Zurich Tonhalle. And we are still in 1946, which, by the way, is a very, very good year because I was born in 1946. In February 1947, Piero Farulli replaced Forzati at the viola desk, and the first performance in the new and permanent company was at Mantova. Debut followed the year later in Austria, England, at the Venice International Festival, and at the Engadin Konzertwochen, where the collaboration with the clarinetist Antoine de Bavière in the Mozart Quintet Köchel 581 occurred. Very difficult to find. I couldn't find a recording of that. Supposedly very beautiful. I did listen to one passage of it once on the radio, but I'm still trying to find it. They also gave the world premiere of the Villa-Lobos Quartet number 9 at the Accademia Filarmonica Romana, another recording which is very, very difficult to find. A friend of mine has it, and I hope I'll be able to add it. They appeared in Italy, England, Scotland, Spain, France, followed in 1948. Altogether, 63 concerts. Just to give us a sense, every year, Ton Koopman gives something like 150 to 170 concerts. How he does it, I have no idea. But anyhow, the group began recording for Decca Records. Concerts rose to over 100 in 1949, with visits to Sweden, the Czech, well, at that time, Czechoslovakia, Denmark, Norway, Holland, Stockholm, the Royal Academy. They gave a series of lecture recitals with Gerda Busoni, the widow of the famous Ferruccio Busoni, who, in a way, reintroduced Bach to the concert hall and wrote very interesting improvisations on Bach. And another century of concerts was given in 1950. In other words, another 100 concerts in 1950. Finally, 1951, dropped the Nuovo from their name. The quartet now performed at the Edinburgh Festival and at the Salzburg Festival. And it was at Salzburg that they had a long and very influential interview with the famous German conductor Wilhelm Furtwängler, who urged them to work towards a much greater freedom of expression, which was access for them the world of grand romanticism. And this is the beginning of their love story with the quartets of Beethoven and, to a lesser degree, Schubert. In November of 1951, they tour for the first time the United States, a tour which was repeated in approximately every second year until 1977. Virgil Thomson, a very famous musical critic, pronounced them the finest string quartet unquestionably that our century has known. 2 years later, 1953, is the year in which they transferred their recording program to Columbia Records, the famous RCA, who had also the dog, his master's voice, and they gave 59 concerts in the USA and Canada only, and it was also a very, very happy event because finally Elisa Pegreffi and Paolo Borciani, who were lovers for, at that time, something like 15 years, get married. Recording which follows included 1954 the Darius Milhaud Quartet number 12 and the Debussy Quartet in 1956, which Robert Kemp described as miraculous. The group was then studying the sixth Mozart Quartet dedicated to Joseph Haydn and performed them at venues including Milan and Fiesole. Important festival appearance continued at Lucerne, the Maggio Musicale Fiorentino in 1959. By the way, if you happen to be able to go to the Maggio Musicale Fiorentino, it's an outstanding event, really. Happens every year. I don't know if I have to tell it to you, but I will reveal the secret. It happens in May. The Prague Spring Festival 1961 and the Berlin Musikwochen. Through the later 1960s and early 1970s, the group toured further afield. They went to Macedonia, to South America, to South Africa and Zambia, to Poland, the USSR, Japan in 1973. Meanwhile, their recording projects are now with Philips, and they start selling more and more records. The Mozart Integrale was finished in 1972, and the Beethoven Integrale in 1973. This later period, their collaboration with Maurizio Pollini, the pianist, took place. The completion of their recording work of the later Quartet of Schubert did not occur until 1977. In their late concerts, the group focused especially upon Beethoven and Schubert, often devoting a recital to two works, a single masterpiece by each composer. Something, by the way, that the Borodin Quartet are doing until today, although it's Borodin Quartet number 7 or 8, but they're still conducting concert after concert where half of the program is a quartet by Shostakovich and the other half is a quartet by Beethoven. December 1977, Piero Farulli was obliged to retire from the group owing to a very severe illness and was replaced by Dino Asciolla. However, following a tour to the forsaken Valley of Tears called Israel, it was decided to bring the quartet to an end in 1980. Paolo Borciani devoted his later years to Bach, the art of fugue, working with Pegreffi, his wife, and two students of Farulli and Rossi. Pegreffi devoted herself to teaching. Farulli found his place in the school of Fiesole. They come from Tuscany and probably preferred staying there, and I can understand it. Rossi returned to the performance of chamber music. All four were awarded the gold medal of Benemeriti della Scuola della Cultura e dell'Arte by the Presidente della Repubblica. Pertini, if you remember, the incredible personality of Pertini, the small huge man of Italian politics. The recording that we're going to listen to tonight is extremely hard to come by, and I'm very glad to be able to offer it to you and to all of you Sofia lovers, because it's just very rare. It becomes very rare. They played the two pieces of the number 13, Rosamunde, and the number 14, Tod und das Mädchen, in the event of receiving the gold medal from Il Presidente della Repubblica. And here we have them, obviously, when they were very, very young. This photo is from 1951, but when they dropped Il Nuovo, and they became no longer Nuovo. And now we shall start. The first movement is like a sonata. It's an Allegro ma non troppo. It begins with a wistful theme in the first violin, accompanied by swirling arpeggios in the second violin, and static harmonies from the viola and the cello. The thematic material vacillates between minor and major, thus representing a dialectic of sorrow and joy, like so many other works of Franz Schubert. Schubert assimilated this modal freedom from Beethoven. He's optimistic in the major keys, struggling for assertion throughout the movement, but in the end, sadness reigns as the movement closes in A minor. So here, this evening, we're going to listen to first movement of the Rosamunde Quartet, played by the Quartetto Italiano. Let's listen to it. really hear the incredible struggle between the minor and the major. And every time that the major seems to be taking over the scene and be joyful and sprouting like a new flower, a minor kind of finds its way slowly, slowly but surely, and imposes itself. So let's go to the second movement. This is in Andante. Schubert followed the typical practice in the Rosamunde Quartet by writing the second movement in a slower tempo and in the relative major. Here we go to the C major of the work's overall key, which is an A minor. This movement paraphrases the Entr'acte number 3 in B flat major from the Rosamunde music that we listened to last week, giving the quartet as a whole its nickname. This is why later the number 13 became to be known as the Rosamunde Quartet. By the way, Schubert never named it the Rosamunde Quartet, as he never named the Death and the Maiden, and he never named the Forelle. It came later by others. Schubert transposed the material up a step to conform to the quartet's tonal plan. And we'll listen to this. It's a completely new idea of the same basic plan that he had in the beginning. Let's listen to it. the Quartetto Italiano are really giving us a treat with the way they perform this, because they don't let themselves go with the music, I should say, with the atmosphere of the music. And it remains la musica netta. Let's go to the third movement, a menuetto. Keeping true to the string quartet genre, Schubert composed the third movement as a minuet, a triple meter dance of moderate tempo. The tonal plan breaks new ground. We, as if starting out with a completely new approach to the same motif as earlier. Ambiguous tonality in the opening passage presages a rapid fluctuation between major and minor throughout the rest of the movement. The trio section boldly asserts the A major key, only to be overruled by the inexorable power of A minor at the close of the movement. So here we are. It's quite incredible the way he succeeded in maintaining the feeling of a major chord, though it finishes off in minor. And now we come to the fourth and last movement of this quartet, this beautiful quartet. And now we have an Allegro moderato. The quartet could just as well be called Goethe Griechenlands, meaning the gods of the Greeks. Both the third and the fourth movements spin out their thematic material from motives first heard in Schubert's own Die Goethe Griechenlands, the Greek gods, as we said, a lied that he composed 5 years earlier in 1819, sprightly dotted rhythms and virtuosic passage work characterize this final movement, though the minor tonalities make their presence felt. Schubert finally cuts through the gloom once and for all with a rousing cadence in A major to complete the work. And it's such a great feeling to see how this struggling, this ailing genius succeed yet again to be stronger than anything else, and the music is full of joy. It leads into the joy. Let us hear the last movement, the Allegro moderato, played by the Quartetto Italiano of this Rosamunde string quartet in A Lovely, 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 lovely. What a beautiful piece of music. Okay, thank you very much for being with us tonight and hope to see you again with us Thursday. We have a very special and for me, a very personally moving evening. We are going to hear Gidon Kremer play the Violin Concerto Number 2 by Shostakovich with Seiji Ozawa and the Boston Philharmonic. Saturday, we are starting a new series. The new series is dedicated to my favorite author, if there could be such a thing. Well, let's say there could be. It's going to be dedicated to Herzog by Saul Bellow, and we'll dedicate probably 8 to 10 meetings to Herzog by Saul Bellow because it's such a great and influential piece of work. And that's it for this week. Please come and visit us at Eusofia at our site as we are getting new things every day. And why not start taking part maybe in life on Eusofia, start your blog or participate in a forum, or if you would like to give us something of your personal works, maybe in a short story or poetry. It can be in any language you want. And looking forward to have you with us again. Thank you very much. And have a very lovely and above all quiet evening and night. Good night from Eusofia and see you again. Bye.